Today, in the audiobook classroom, we're going to be talking about troubleshooting, a few of the most common issues that you'll have to deal with in your audiobook projects. There are two ways to think about getting over some of these project hurdles. The first way is thinking about it as stuff not to do. You don't want to panic, you don't want to ignore troubleshooting issues, and you don't want to assume that someone else will take care of them. On the other side, there is stuff to do. Make sure that you stay calm, relaxed, and professional, focus on the solutions for the troubleshooting, and assume the responsibility yourself. Even if you don't necessarily feel like the resolution to a troubleshooting issue is your job, that doesn't mean you can't try to do it to the best of your ability. Three troubleshooting issues that come up all the time deal with receiving files, systemic issues from the recording stages, and session marker syncing. File receipt. In other words, getting the stuff you need to do your job. If you're on a schedule, then you know what materials you need to get started. If you don't get that stuff when you need it, that automatically turns into a problem. And you have to tell somebody as quickly as possible. Some of the things that you might be missing. You could be missing audio, the actual narration, or maybe a room tone file. You might be missing documents. There's a difference between different kinds of scripts. There's marked and unmarked versions. You'll see different styles, in-house versus roll edits, and sometimes you even have to work with a script that's not finalized. It's important to know the difference between these types of scripts, and it's important to know which ones you need to get started. As far as receiving files goes, there will be times when work that's supposed to be completed and uploaded for you to get started is not ready on time. In those cases, you have to contact someone right away. Sometimes a good solution is to just get partial work from the person who's supposed to be giving you a complete project. This way, at least you'll have something to work on while they're finishing it. There is confusion about deadlines in a lot of cases. You can run into issues where if you're downloading a session to do a second pass edit, the files don't relink up properly. Sometimes you will run into corrupted files or issues with labeling on the server. The most important thing is to never ignore these things. Tell someone right away, contact whoever you need to, but make sure you do something about them. It's never good to tell your project supervisor later that you didn't get something done because you didn't get the right files and you didn't tell anyone about it. Troubleshooting when it comes to systemic problems is also something that comes up a lot. Typically, systemic problems are going to happen during the directing and recording stages, and it's really just a matter of trouble before you even start with the editing. What does it mean to be systemic? It means that the issue is throughout an entire book. One of the biggest reasons that you should do a project scan before you get started is to check for these systemic issues. Four of the most common ones are issues with breathing patterns, equipment issues, mouth noises, or environment noises. You can listen to 15-second segments through a 10-hour recording, and you will note if any of these are issues because they'll be consistently throughout the whole book. A project scan doesn't help as much when it comes to systemic issues concerning pronunciation, characterization, and word lists. If you find systemic issues, you have to decide what to do. It might be that you need to send a project to mastering to clean up audio throughout an entire book. It might be that you need to contact pre-production about the word list, especially if it relates to main character names. You might need to ask someone a question about how to approach fixing breathing patterns or mouth noises that occur throughout a whole book. You might even need to talk to the director of a project about equipment settings. When you contact people to communicate systemic issues, one of the things you're finding out is, in advance, what things should you be marking in the session? Here's a little bit of an expanded list of systemic issues. Character name pronunciation, foreign word pronunciation, dialect and presentation. There are instances where narrators entirely disregard word lists. In some of these cases, you need to learn how to search through scripts to find out where all of these instances are. That way you can tell your project supervisor that there are 300 instances of a main character's name that are probably pronounced wrong. When it comes to breathing patterns, you have to determine the threshold. What proportion of breaths do you have to take out to make it sound natural enough to be a good project? When it comes to equipment issues, sometimes there are bad recording levels, sometimes the processing going into the recording is bad, For example, if an EQ or noise gate is set wrong, systemic mouth noises like sinus clicks or wet lips or tongue, you need to tell someone right away if you think that these noises are so distracting that the project is impossible to edit. Environment noises might be fans, air conditioners, traffic, music in the background, things like that. If those noises in the background are so bad that it distracts from the whole project, you have to tell someone to find out what to do next. Another big troubleshooting issue that happens a lot deals with session marker syncing. Pro Tools is either your best friend or your worst enemy when it comes to this aspect of the software. As an editor or as a second passer, you have to be very familiar with placing markers, moving single markers forward and back, moving multiple markers forward and back, spotting audio to markers, locking markers, using audio handles, and understanding the relationship between markers, the marker row, clips, groups, and timelines. If there are any of these things that you're not comfortable with, you should talk to someone about how to practice learning how to do these things or working with techniques. You can go through old sessions and move markers around and try to sync things up as a way to practice. The same with using audio handles. When it comes to troubleshooting, you really have to prepare for the worst. Learn whatever you can in non-stressful, non-deadline situations. Look up tutorials online. Talk to other people about how they handle troubleshooting situations. Budget your time that you allow people to turn things into you late, and you should plan on trying to turn things in early. Develop relationships with the people who can help you. Someone in the company understands how to resolve any troubleshooting issue. If you don't have the knowledge and experience right offhand, you need to know who to talk to, and they will walk you through it. It does come back to that idea, though, that you should never ignore a problem. You aren't expected to know how to troubleshoot a new situation if you've never done it before, but you are expected to know how to reach out to someone who can help you. That's it for the audiobook classroom for this session.